The air in the boutique hung thick with the scent of expensive leather and hushed privilege. A gilded cage where Richard the manager moved like a self-appointed king, his polished shoes clicking imperiously on the marble floor, his gaze sweeping over the sparse clientele with practiced disdain. His arrogance, a palpable force field that repelled genuine warmth and invited only obsequiousness. He saw Amara, the moment she entered, a black woman in simple yet elegant attire, her posture radiating a quiet dignity that immediately grated against his ingrained biases. She moved with a grace that seemed out of place amidst the cold luxury. Her eyes intelligent and observant, taking in the displays, not with hunger, but with a calm appraisal that Richard misinterpreted entirely. As she paused near a case of exquisite timepieces, his mind already painting her with the brush of his prejudice, assuming she couldn't possibly belong here, that her presence was an intrusion, a potential threat to the pristine order he enforced. He watched her fingers lightly trace the glass near a particularly stunning diamond-encrusted wristwatch, a piece worth more than most people's annual salary, and his suspicion curdled into a toxic certainty. She was casing the joint, planning to steal. He felt a surge of righteous indignation, a perverse thrill at the prospect of exposing her publicly, of asserting his dominance over someone he deemed inferior. His voice, when he finally approached, was a carefully modulated weapon, sharp and dripping with false politeness, that barely concealed his contempt. "Can I help you with something, ma'am, or are you just browsing?" He emphasized the last word, making it sound like an accusation. Amara turned, her dark eyes meeting his, without flinching, her expression serene. "Good afternoon. I was admiring the craftsmanship of this piece. It's quite remarkable." Her voice was smooth, calm, a stark contrast to the tension coiling in Richard's gut. He leaned in slightly, invading her space, his smile a thin, cruel slash. "Remarkable, yes, and remarkably expensive, far beyond the reach of most browsers. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable looking at something in your price range." The insult landed like a stone, but Amara's composure didn't crack. She simply tilted her head slightly. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm quite comfortable here. Thank you." Richard's frustration mounted her calm defiance, infuriating him. He needed to provoke her, needed to expose her, for the thief he was convinced she was. He gestured sharply towards the watch case. "Did you touch this one, ma'am? The Cartier Ballon Bleu." His tone was now openly accusatory. Amara's brow furrowed slightly, a flicker of confusion passing through her eyes. "I admired it through the glass. I didn't touch it." Richard scoffed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Right, you didn't touch it, and yet my security system shows a distinct anomaly right here, right where you were standing, a brief disruption consistent with someone attempting to tamper with the lock." He was lying, fabricating evidence on the spot, his prejudice blinding him to the absurdity of his claim. Amara's eyes widened slightly, not with guilt, but with dawning realization of the trap being sprung. "I assure you, sir, I did nothing of the sort. I merely looked." Richard's face hardened, his voice rising, drawing the attention of the few other customers and a nervous sales associate. "Don't lie to me. I saw you hovering. I know your type, always looking for an easy score, thinking you can just take what isn't yours." "Well, not in my store." He stepped closer, his bulk intimidating. "Empty your pockets. Now, let's see what you've got." The demand was loud, humiliating, a public spectacle designed to strip her of dignity. Amara stood frozen for a moment, the injustice of it washing over her. A wave of anger she quickly suppressed, replacing it with an icy resolve. She met his gaze, her voice dropping to a low, steady tone that cut through the sudden silence in the boutique. "You are making a grave mistake, sir. I suggest you reconsider this course of action immediately." Richard mistook her calm for fear a sign he was winning. He laughed, a short, bitter sound. "A mistake. The only mistake was letting you through the door. Now empty your pockets, or I call security and have them do it for you." The sales associate looked terrified, unsure whether to intervene or obey her manager. The other customers stared, a mix of shock and morbid curiosity on their faces. Amara took a deep breath, her shoulders straightening. She reached slowly, deliberately into her handbag, not fumbling, not rushing. Her movements precise and controlled. Richard watched his heart pounding with anticipation of his triumph. She pulled out a sleek leather wallet, a simple keychain, and a phone. Nothing more. She held them out silently. Richard snatched the wallet, ignoring the phone and keychain. He rifled through it, roughly pulling out a few credit cards and some cash. His face fell slightly, seeing no watch, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. "Where is it? You hid it somewhere else," he accused, his voice losing some of its bluster, gaining a desperate edge. Amara's eyes were like chips of obsidian, cold and unforgiving. "There is nothing to find, because I took nothing. You, however, have crossed a line you cannot uncross." Richard's face flushed crimson with rage and embarrassment. He felt his control slipping. "You think you're clever, don't you? Playing the victim well? I'm not falling for it, security," he bellowed towards the back office. "Get out here now! We have a shoplifter!" A burly security guard appeared, his expression wary as he took in the scene. Richard pointed a trembling finger at Amara. "This woman, she stole the Ballon Bleu watch. I want her detained and the police called immediately." The guard hesitated, looking from Richard's furious face to Amara's unnervingly calm one. "Sir, are you certain the procedures require—" Richard cut him off, spittle flying. "I'm certain I saw her. I have the security anomaly do your job." The guard moved reluctantly towards Amara, his hands outstretched. "Ma'am, please come with me." Amara didn't move. She simply looked past the guard, her gaze fixed on the boutique's entrance, where a woman had just entered, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, her bearing radiating authority. She was Ms. Evelyn Reed, the regional director for the entire luxury brand chain, and she had heard Richard's shouted accusations as she entered. Her face was a mask of icy fury. "Richard," her voice was quiet, but it sliced through the tension like a knife. "What in God's name is going on here?" Richard whirled around, his face paling slightly at the sight of his superior. "Ms. Reed, thank goodness you're just in time, this woman." He gestured wildly at Amara. "She stole one of the Cartier watches. I caught her red-handed. I was just having security detain her." Ms. Reed's eyes swept over Amara, taking in her dignified stance, her unwavering calm, then back to Richard, her expression hardening. "She stole it. Richard, are you absolutely certain of this?" Richard puffed out his chest. 100% certain, Ms. Reed. I witnessed the anomaly. I confronted her. She refused to cooperate. She's a thief." Ms. Reed took a step closer to Amara, her voice softening slightly. "Ma'am, I am Ms. Evelyn Reed, the regional director. Could you please tell me your version of events?" Amara finally spoke, her voice clear and resonant, carrying easily in the silent boutique. "My name is Amara Williams. I entered this boutique approximately 20 minutes ago. I admired several pieces, including the Cartier watch in question. I did not touch it. I did not tamper with any case. I did not steal anything. Mr. Richard approached me, accused me of casing the store, then falsely claimed security evidence of tampering. He demanded I empty my belongings, which I did. Finding nothing, He then escalated to publicly accusing me of theft, calling security and demanding my arrest and police involvement based solely on his prejudice and a fabrication. Richard sputtered. "She's lying, Ms. Reed. She's a very convincing liar, but she's lying." Ms. Reed ignored him, her eyes locked on Amara, a flicker of something profound recognition, perhaps, passing between them. Amara Williams. Ms. Reed repeated the name slowly, her voice filled with a sudden dawning horror that made Richard's blood run cold. "The Amara Williams." Amara gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. "The same." Richard looked between them, confusion warring with a sudden primal fear. "What? What are you talking about? Who is she?" Ms. Reed turned to Richard, her face ashen, her voice trembling with a mixture of fury and terror. "Richard, you fool, you absolute imbecile. This is Amara Williams. She is the founder and CEO of Williams Holdings, the investment firm that acquired this entire luxury brand 6 months ago. She is your ultimate boss, the owner of this store, this building, this entire chain." The words hung in the air, a death knell to Richard's world. The color drained completely from his face. His knees felt weak. The smug arrogance evaporated, replaced by sheer gut-wrenching terror. The boutique seemed to tilt around him. The faces of the customers, the sales associate, the security guard all blurred into a tableau of his utter ruin. He looked at Amara again, really looked at her, seeing not the woman he had demonized, but the embodiment of the power he had blindly mocked and attacked. "No," he whispered, the sound strangled. "No, it can't be." Amara's gaze was pitiless. "It can be, and it is." Richard stumbled forward, his hands outstretched in a grotesque parody of supplication, his voice cracking with panic. "Ms. Williams, please. I am so sorry. I didn't know. I made a terrible mistake, a horrible misunderstanding. Please forgive me. I was wrong, so wrong." His words tumbled out in a desperate torrent, a pathetic litany of self-preservation. "I was stressed. I misread the situation. I let my judgment get clouded. Please, it was an accident. I swear, I didn't mean it. I didn't know who you were." Amara held up a single hand, silencing him. The gesture was simple, yet it carried the weight of an absolute command. Richard froze, his pleas dying in his throat, choked by the intensity of her stare. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating, charged with the electricity of his downfall. Amara began to speak, her voice low, calm, yet it filled the entire space with devastating clarity. Each word, a carefully aimed hammer blow, shattering Richard's remaining defenses. "You stand there, Richard, and offer apologies, dripping with the fear of consequence, not the sincerity of remorse. You call it a mistake, a misunderstanding, a clouding of judgment. Let us be brutally honest about what this was. It was racism, pure and unadulterated. It was the poison in your soul that saw my skin color and immediately branded me a criminal. It was the arrogance of your position that made you believe you could act on that vile impulse without repercussion. You looked at me and saw not a person, but a stereotype, a threat to your precious little kingdom of exclusivity. You fabricated evidence, you publicly humiliated me. You threatened me with false imprisonment, based solely on the color of my skin and the arrogance of your ignorance. Your apology is not for the harm you caused me, it is for the harm you have now brought upon yourself. It is the coward's plea of a bully who has finally met someone they cannot bully. You speak of stress, of clouded judgment, as if these are excuses for the deliberate malicious act of destroying another human being's dignity. based on hate. There is no misunderstanding here. Richard, only a horrifying clarity of your character. Your apology is not only too late, it is an insult. It is the final proof that you have learned nothing, that you remain trapped in the same small-minded prejudice that led you to this abyss. You are fired, effective immediately, not just from this store, but from any position within this company ever again. Your employment is terminated, your access revoked, your presence here is no longer tolerated. Furthermore, I will be pursuing legal action against you personally for defamation, false accusation, assault, and civil rights violations. Your actions today were not merely unprofessional, they were criminal, and you will answer for them in a court of law. The security footage. Real security footage. Not your fabricated anomaly has been preserved. Every word you spoke, recorded every action, witnessed. You will have the opportunity to explain your stress and clouded judgment to a judge and jury. You thought you had power. Richard, you mistook the authority granted to you by a company I own for true power. You wielded it like a club against those you deemed lesser. Now you face the consequence of that profound miscalculation. True power isn't found in humiliating others based on prejudice. It's found in character, in integrity, in treating every human being with the dignity they inherently deserve. You possess none of those things. You are a disgrace to this brand, to this profession, and to humanity itself. Get out of my sight now, before I have security physically remove you the way you so eagerly threatened to do to me. Richard stood frozen, his face a mask of utter devastation, the reality of his total annihilation crashing down upon him. The pleas died, replaced by a choked sob of pure despair. He looked at Ms. Reed, who could only meet his gaze with a look of profound pity and disgust. He looked at the security guard, who now stood straighter, his expression hard. He looked at the customers, their faces a mixture of shock, satisfaction, and vindication. Finally, he looked at Amara, her eyes still holding that terrifying calm, the calm of absolute power and righteous judgment. He saw no mercy there, only the cold, hard truth of his own exposed ugliness and the irreversible consequences it had wrought. He turned, stumbled, his legs barely supporting him, and fled the boutique, the heavy glass doors swinging shut behind him with a finality that echoed the slamming shut of his career, his reputation, his entire privileged world. Amara watched him go, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to Ms. Reed and the terrified staff, her voice regaining a measure of its earlier warmth, though still carrying an undercurrent of steel. Ms. Reed, please ensure Mr. Henderson's. She paused, correcting herself. Richard's termination is processed immediately and securely. Review all store policies and training protocols with extreme prejudice. We will not tolerate this culture ever again. She then addressed the sales associate and the security guard, her tone softer. I apologize. You all had to witness that ugliness. Thank you for your composure. We will be providing counseling support and reviewing procedures to ensure no employee is ever placed in such an untenable position again. Finally, she looked at the other customers who remained silent. I am deeply sorry for the disturbing scene you were subjected to in a place meant for enjoyment. Please accept our sincerest apologies and a generous credit towards your next purchase as a small gesture of our regret for your experience today. As the boutique staff began to move, a mixture of relief and lingering shock on their faces, Amara walked slowly towards the display case containing the Cartier watch. She looked at it for a long moment, not with desire but with a profound sadness. Then she turned and walked towards the exit, her steps quiet and measured. The heavy doors closing behind her, leaving behind a space forever altered by the brutal exposure of hate and the swift, devastating delivery of justice. The air still hummed with the aftershocks. The gilded cage felt less pristine, now stained by the ugliness that had been revealed, yet also cleansed by the purging fire of consequence. The story of Richard's downfall and Amara's quiet, devastating power would linger, a stark, unforgettable testament to the fact that true power lies not in prejudice or position, but in the unshakable dignity of the human spirit and the inescapable reckoning that awaits those who choose cruelty over compassion.